Hi again guys, and welcome to another revisited car review, once again from Gran Turismo 6, now updating it for Gran Turismo Sport in a similar way to with the Veyron. This one is a car which a number of people, even since day one actually on GT Sport, have wanted me to review or to do another tune for, even a top speed tune, something like that. Now, I do plan to do some form of tuning for this car, maybe even more than one, because there are a couple of very notable things about the car which are worth looking into. The top speed, for instance, is excellent. In this video even, you'll see it getting up around 263 miles per hour, which is very, very impressive. But also as well, the huge advantage, actually, of the Peugeot 908 in this very specific and kind of unimportant regard, but it does go to show how impressive the car is in this way. It's got so much torque throughout its entire rev range, plus coupled with the excellent gearbox that it gives you to work with, you can get incredible speed out of this Peugeot 908, even in first gear. And I'm not just talking about top speed, because there are plenty of cars that you can get great top speed out of, especially prototypes, because they have huge power, huge torque, they're lightweight, aerodynamic, and they have a good gearbox to work with. It's pretty much the ideal scenario. But it's rare that you'll get good top speed in first gear and good acceleration. And that is where the huge, huge torque comes in. Because the one that I'm driving in the video clearly is not stock. You wouldn't be getting 263 miles per hour out of it if it were, that's obvious. But even in its stock form, if you want to use that very loose term in the case of a prototype, you're looking at 885 pound-feet of torque. That is a huge level to be working with, similar to Audi with their diesels as well. And of course it's not surprising that a diesel would be putting out that kind of torque. It's a twin-turbo 5.5 litre V12, which I believe I've said before on the channel I think is a gorgeous engine specification. It just sounds so cool. A 5.5 litre twin-turbo diesel V12 sounds pretty awesome to me. To me that would be an awesome engine to put in a diesel supercar, for instance. But you're looking at 700 horsepower straight off the bat. That's very healthy, and it's a whole lot more than a lot of the other new prototypes, especially the ones that came after this, like the R18, the Porsche 919 even, and of course with those you have a much more obvious, but not obvious on paper, hybrid system, which actually means you're putting out temporarily a lot more power than what is said in the game. But with the Peugeot, again, it kind of harkens back to the more old school style of Le Mans prototype in a similar way to how the Audi R10 did as well, where it wasn't a hybrid, it just had huge power and huge torque. It didn't need to be a hybrid, very fuel efficient and also overwhelmingly quick. Now, on the subject of being overwhelmingly quick, it is one of the quickest prototypes in the game for top speed, that's for sure. And actually I have to applaud the car for how good the handling still is, even with this kind of power and torque and with the lowest downforce setting as well, especially on a city circuit with some pretty tight corners thrown in there. But it's not as quick as it was, and it's not necessarily as dominant in a straight line as it was, because on Gran Turismo 6 this thing could do 295 miles per hour, pretty easily in fact. So it's not that quick now, it's a good 30 miles per hour slower than that. But still, most of the cars in the game are quite a bit slower, so that's not surprising. It's more realistic from a certain point of view. Still, I have my doubts about this car actually staying on the road at 263. Let me remind you, of course, about the Mercedes CLR at the Le Mans, what happened there, even with downforce and racing tyres. So it's a bit sketchy, I'm not so sure about that, but theoretically, of course, it's possible. Now, in terms of the changes that the car have experienced or has experienced in the game, is it like the Veyron? Because the difference is, with the Veyron, it wasn't that great as a track car. It was workable, but it wasn't great by any means, especially not for its ridiculously high classification, one of the highest of any road car in the game, in fact. But it's massively improved, and it also benefits more, I would say, from the N-Class categories now. Whereas the Peugeot was already great. In fact, one of the best prototypes in the game, it could strongly be argued, because you had the straight line speed of something like an R10, but it could easily outhandle that car. The R10 was always very cumbersome, especially at high speed. The 908, on the other hand, is much more fluid, more like the Audi R8 or the Bentley Speed 8 were. Now, it hasn't lost that, thankfully. It's still incredibly manoeuvrable. The price tag even is excellent at 1 million credits, which is cheaper than it used to be, that's for sure. And we've got rid of the two different versions. There's just one, it's pared back. You can swap out the livery, of course, if you want to, or as I have, paid homage to the Peugeot 905, or at least the person who painted it did. I didn't make it myself. But I would say that the Peugeot definitely feels at least as good now as it did on Gran Turismo 6. There are some very notable changes, in peak tune form in particular. It's no way near what it was on Gran Turismo 6, and I don't just mean speed. The torque and the power are no way near either, because on there you could get up to, I believe it was 1169 horsepower, and on the base model, I believe it was 1202, which is incredibly high. Now it's no way near that. You're in, I believe it's the high 900s, if I recall correctly, fully tuned. So it's not exactly lacking, of course, but not as high as it was, either. But the 908 is the kind of car which, in a similar way I would say to stuff like the Sauber C9, the Minolta, even the 905, also from Peugeot, it refuses to die. It's been phased out due to regulation changes, but it's still such a competitive car because it's on what I would say is a very healthy cusp between time periods. It's new enough to benefit from incredible fuel technology, fantastic safety improvements, and fantastic aero design, just like modern LMPs should. But the fact that it's not a hybrid, it still has that big capacity, twin-turbo, old-school engine, it almost feels like the 908 in GT Sport is almost like a combination of the spirit of a Group C car in an LMP frame. And that is a pretty good combination to have. It already felt like that on Gran Turismo 6. I think we just took it for granted at the time, whereas now that we don't have cars like the Minolta, the R10, a number of other fan favourites, which let's hope they will come back, but at least for now we don't. So if you are jonesing for those vehicles, myself included, try this Peugeot, because at least for now it will keep you satiated. It's got the spirit of those raw, big turbo old school machines with incredible straight line speed and power, effortless torque. It's the definition of effortless torque, in fact, but at the same time it's got spot on handling. It's not the most beginner friendly thing around, but then again, what prototype is? It's actually very smooth to work with, incredibly competitive, and of course even without the tuning, you've still got 700 horsepower, plenty of speed to work with. So if by some strange reason you haven't tried the Peugeot yet, especially if you're completely new to the franchise, give it a try. You might not have quite the fuel advantage of some of the other hybrids, but it's not exactly bad in that regard either. Plus, incredible power, incredible torque, it's a good all-rounder. But that's it for this pick overall, of course. I'll see you guys next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.